Welcome everyone, and welcome Krystal.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
Me too.
So I am here today with my very dear friend, Krystal Woods. Krystal is an intuitive coach for women. She uses different tools to help women like human design, emotional freedom technique, and most of all, her deep, innate intuition. So Krystal, can you just tell us about you and what you do?
Yeah, it kind of started a few years back when I was doing fitness and wellness coaching and working with an MLM, and I just realized at that time there were a lot of common themes with these women around self-worth, and it just went a lot deeper than wanting to be healthier.
Right.
And so I found myself kind of coaching in that way more so than trying to give them meal plans and all of that. It just went a lot deeper. So back in December of last year, I decided to branch out and start my own coaching business, just one-on-one coaching. I started with group coaching, and then a month later I learned about human design, which just changed the trajectory of not just my business but my life.
Yeah.
And it just resonated so deeply with me in that moment that I dove right in, and I've been studying human design every day since. And I just found that I have this really unique way of channeling the information, because it can be really overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost like I see and speak in human design. It's like very...
Yes, you do.
Yeah, and it just kind of naturally came to me. So yeah, I just started using that in my practice, and people started feeling the way I was feeling about it, and it's just evolved over the last few months, and here I am now. I do kind of readings for people, but more so than a typical human design reading, I take the information that I see in the chart and actually apply it to what these women are going through in their personal lives, and just help them like shed the layers and
Yes.
like be who they are and give themselves permission to be who they are. So it's really powerful.
Well, I've been on my journey with you ever since you introduced me to human design, and it's been really amazing to watch you in your business and the path that you're on now and how much impact you're making on women's lives. And I know that you have helped me shed those layers, and what you've taught me through human design and what I've been learning through human design just from my own reading is that it's okay to be myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been one of the most powerful tools I know for me in my life. It's been so validating. So what is human design? I know it's a huge question, but can you give us a synopsis for those people who aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, so I think a common sort of assumption is that human design is like astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it does use astrology, but it pulls from modern science and also these ancient traditions like astrology, like the chakra system. That's what the energy centers are based on. And also the Chinese I Ching and the Kabbalah tree of life. So it's sort of like this marrying of all these different ancient traditions paired with modern science to tell us sort of what our soul's path is for this lifetime, and sort of what our genetic blueprint is. And it talks about, whereas astrology really just talks about our personality,
Mm-hmm.
human design shows us what's innate in our bodies as well as what's in our personalities, how people see us. So it just goes really, really deep, and it is really intricate, but it really tells us what we're made of energetically.
Yeah. So I know that in human design there's so many different elements, and like you said, it's very intricate, but I think a good place to start with is sort of talking about the different types in human design. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so if you look at sort of everyone in this collective as a puzzle piece all fitting together, there are 5 different types of puzzle pieces. And those are our types. So we have the generators and the manifesting generators, the manifestors, the projectors, and the reflectors. And the manifestors are the ones who are here to initiate. So manifestors are here to be our visionaries, to create change. They're here to have these sort of divine urges, almost like messengers, and to just initiate action. And then...
And that's about 9% of the population?
8 to 9%.
Okay.
Yep. And then, and manifestors actually were more common hundreds of years ago, when we had more, I guess, dictators and royalty, and dynasties, and manifestors typically were the ones who really got these movements going.
Right.
And then we have our projectors, like you, about 20% of humanity, and projectors are the ones to guide the process. There are teachers, there are guides, they have this sort of penetrating and absorbing aura, so they know more about people than maybe people know about themselves. And so if manifestors are here to start the thing, the projector's here to guide it.
Okay.
And then our generators and manifesting generators, they are the ones that see everything through. So they finish those projects for us. They are the ones that have this buzzing life force energy. They're the ones that have the open aura, the pulling aura.
Like a hug.
Yeah, the hug. I always call it that. It's like 70% of humanity. So really we're living in a generator's world.
Right.
The manifestors start the thing, but the generators really get it done. And the reflectors are only about 1% of the population. There are sort of social chameleons, and they are the ones who sort of oversee it all and tell us this is working or this isn't working. Yeah, so they really absorb everything from their environment, and they have this sampling aura, so they're kind of like tasting energy from other people and from the environment to see, is this healthy or not? And so the manifestors start, and the projectors guide, and the generators see it through, and the reflectors are the ones who tell us, yep, working, or nope, not working. So we all kind of fit together in this big giant puzzle,
right.
With the types.
So, Krystal, you are a manifester. Can you tell us more about what it was like for you when you found out that you were a manifester? How did you feel validated by that? How did it change your life? How did it impact the way you think about yourself, the way that you parent your son, Matt? And also, as you can see, Krystal has a baby who is about to arrive any day now.
And fun fact, if it comes today, it's going to be a manifestor.
Yes.
I've already checked.
Yeah.
So.
And then how, knowing your design and studying your design and now living your design, how has that also impacted your relationship with your partner, Mike? And how has that impacted your business? That's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So basically, how has it changed your life?
Well, first of all, I should say that when I learned I was a manifester, I was really surprised.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I really identified with the description of a projector. And I think part of it too is just kind of being in this spiritual space where we're taught to kind of relax and trust and wait. And that's the projector strategy, is to wait for the invitation. Right. And sort of just being in this this trusting state that everything that's meant to happen will happen. And I'm like, I just really resonated with that, and just other aspects of being a projector. When I learned I was a manifester, I was kind of confused, I'm not a visionary. I'm not, I don't really like big things.
You do,
well,
actually.
When I really reflected on it, I was like, well, yeah, I guess, thinking about my past and sort of when I have made big moves in my life, it really has been sort of that divine urge. And people have always been like, what just happened? And that is kind of signature for manifestors. They can come off as really unpredictable. And part of that unpredictability also is that people can have this sort of energetic compulsion to control manifestors. And so when I read about manifestor conditioning, and conditioning is just sort of what happens when we're in the world, from our parents to the people around us to society. You know, we're conditioned by everyone else's energy and to think that we should be that way too.
Right.
And so manifestors, being only 8 to 9% of the population, of course, you know, you're bound to be conditioned by, if you're just surrounded by a bunch of generators or, you know, other types. And I was. And when I really started to reflect on that, and when I really started to like do the deeper inner work and kind of go back into my childhood and see like, I was conditioned to like play it small and keep quiet, and I was controlled. And so I did kind of turn into this really passive people pleaser.
And I remember when you were going through this process early on and you were sharing this with me, and it was very emotional for you, right? To kind of reflect on that and the conditioning and all of that.
Yeah, it was almost like, where would I be if I was really living for myself this whole time? Yeah.
Right.
And it's funny because manifestors typically, when they start, things happen really quickly. Manifestors have this really powerful pushing aura that literally moves energy. And so when they have that divine urge and when they start something and it's really from inside, it just goes. And so the transformation that I've had just this year is like pretty mind-blowing. Once I decided that I was going to step into who I really am, and once I really learned who that was, just things have happened so quickly. And I guess it's affected really every part of my life. It's affected my relationship with my partner for sure, because it validated all of the needs I knew I had.
Yeah.
But that didn't seem right. But I was able to sort of step into that, and also it taught me how to communicate more effectively, because it also taught me that yes, I'm different and so is he, and so I can't communicate with him the same way that I want to be communicated with.
And what is Mike? He's a manifesting generator.
He's a manifesting generator, and generators really are here to respond, where I'm here to initiate and to inform.
What does that mean? Sorry, can you explain what that means, to respond?
Yeah, so respond, like I said before, the generator aura is really open, this hug, it pulls life in. And so the generator is constantly pulling things in. And so the strategy, we say,
about making decisions, right?
Not just making decisions, but really just moving through the world and interacting with other people as well. Responding in every moment to everything, right? So if life is constantly coming, it's just this constant response of like, yeah, I have the energy for that, or no, I don't. Yeah, that really lights me up, or no, it doesn't. Yeah, I really am into that person, or no, I'm not. It's like a response. It's very like kind of back and forth. Whereas the manifestor isn't responding to anything except that divine urge. It's all from the inside, rather than the outside. And so communicating that, informing, is the manifestor strategy. Informing other people, because it's impossible for other people to know. Like, it's invisible to the eye what's going on inside the manifestor. And so the manifestor needs to learn how to inform. And I really resisted this in the beginning, because I was like, that's annoying to me.
Because naturally a manifestor is like, I'm moving, I'm doing my thing. And that strategy of informing, that's not really impacting what you're gonna do. That's just as a courtesy to those around you, right?
Yeah, and also to like ease resistance too.
To ease resistance.
So it's kind of like you're like sweeping the dirt out of your path, so that you can get there faster.
Got it.
And also, yeah, it does. Part of the reason why I think I found it annoying was because a part of me deep down was like, I'm going to meet resistance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hear the no. I'm going to hear that's not a good idea or whatever. And honestly, like, it doesn't matter if it's a good idea or not. Like, I'm doing it. If I've already decided, like,
it's as if it's already happened,
yes,
right?
I can't help it. I have to do it.
Right.
And so, like, you know, the informing is like, oh, like, I don't want to hear it, you know?
Yeah.
But learning how to inform in, like, a very confident place. So, like, making the aligned decision, knowing that it's aligned, and having the confidence to be like, no matter what, this is happening before I choose to inform someone.
Yeah.
They feel that energy, and it really does. Like, I can see the resistance melt away from the other person because they're like, oh, there's nothing for me to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for Mike, it's, you know, me communicating my needs. Like, to give a silly example, but honestly kind of profound, is, you know, and I think a lot of moms or women will definitely relate to this, saying, like, I'm overwhelmed, I need support. To him, that's super overwhelming. To me, that's perfect, because I'm like, okay, great, I get to choose how I show up to support this person. But for him, it's really overwhelming. It's like, so what I've done is I figure out what it is that I need. And I say, I feel very overwhelmed. I could really use your support. Do you think that you could do this for me? And then he gets to say yes or no.
He's responding.
And he's like, yeah, he's responding yes or no. And it flows so much easier.
That's amazing. And it's just it's a little tweak, right?
Yeah.
It's like barely noticeable.
I know, but it's life-changing. Life-changing. Same thing with my son.
It's amazing.
Honey, what do you want to eat for dinner? He's like, what? But if I'm like, hey, do you want spaghetti for dinner? It's so easy for him to say yes or no, you know, because he's a generator.
And you're supposed to ask generators
yes or no questions. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I'm just trying to teach Mike how to talk to a manifester, because it's like, don't ask me and don't tell me. Just like, you know.
Yeah. Well, how are you supposed to communicate with a manifestor?
For instance, you know, hey, can you buy some almond milk? This is such a silly example, but or you know, run out and buy some almond milk. Like, no. Like, do not tell me to do that, you know? Instead, say, we're out of almond milk.
Right.
Then I get to choose if I'm going to initiate the action of going out to get almond milk or not.
And this is very interesting, because I have a manifestor child, Felix. My 6-year-old is a manifestor, and ever since I found out that he's a manifestor, it has been like a sigh of relief, because I'm like, oh, I understand why he's such a spark plug, and why I have to communicate. Like, we just haven't, it was so hard for us to communicate with him. And also, it's like when he decides he wants to do something or he wants something, like, it can be, and it's as silly as he wants a bowl of frozen blueberries for for breakfast, instead of something that's like has protein, which, you know, for me, I'm like, can you just please have some protein? But it's like, once he's made that decision, it's as if it's already happened, so there's no choice for it to not happen.
Exactly.
You know? So what it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're communicating with a manifestor, it's all, does it work to just sort of inform of the situation? It's like, it's not informing what you need, it's just informing what's happening in the situation, like what's happening at that present moment.
Yeah. Because I think, and to tie into that a little bit, when I first started working with my teacher, Bar, my mentor, one of the first things that she had me do, because one of the first things that she told me was like, you're at like maybe 50% of who you are right now.
I remember you telling me
and
that.
I was like, okay, you know, she's like, you're not in your frequency, like, you're giving away all your power, like, you know, all that. And she said, you know, and she's like, you're emotional, you're angry. I'm like, I'm not angry, I'm not emotional. And she's like, okay, well, she goes, for the next week, just write down anytime you feel even a little bit annoyed or angry at all. And I'm like, okay, it turns out I am a little angry. Because I had a long list. But the theme was other people not informing me of the situation so that I could choose how to act. Right? So simple things like, simple things like I was visiting the mainland and my cousin needed a ride. But he didn't inform me of the whole situation so that I could kind of initiate like a plan for him.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it was like I felt
I get it.
It was like I needed to know exactly what was going on. Like I need to be fully informed myself.
So that you can decide what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, the manifestor strategy is to inform, but as much as it's my strategy to inform, I feel like because of that, I expect that in return.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like, clients or potential clients. Like, for instance, like you're having a conversation with someone who maybe wants to work with you and then all of a sudden they ghost you. I'm like, nope. If something changed and it's not the right time, all I want for you to tell me is that.
Yes.
So it's like, that's definitely like a trigger for a manifestor, and the not self of a manifestor is anger. So anytime things are not flowing or anytime you're out of alignment or a situation's out of alignment, that anger kind of flickers a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, it's definitely changed my communication, with my partner, with my son, with clients, with friends.
I mean, I feel like human design is what ultimately deepened our friendship, so much.
Oh, yeah.
Because honestly, I think before you discovered human design, I don't think you understood me, and I didn't understand you.
No.
And
it's like I kind of saw you, but like not on like a deep level.
Right.
And probably the same.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
Because, and that's common with manifestors. I mean, that's often how I feel about Felix.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
Right.
Yeah. But because manifestors also have, can you talk about their aura?
Yeah, so each type has an aura. The manifestor aura, where that generator and manifesting generator aura is like open and welcoming and pulling and hugging.
Right.
When it's healthy, by the way.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of generators who are not living their design and their aura is not necessarily going to feel that way. But yeah, that is the aura. And by aura, I'm not talking about like the pretty colors around you, but I'm talking about like the actual like electromagnetic field that is you and about 6 feet around you in all directions.
Right.
The manifestor aura is closed. It's really dense. So like where the generator aura is open, so you can come in, the manifestor aura is really dense and closed, so that you kind of can't.
And it's repelling.
Yeah, it is repelling. It's I like to say pushing.
Repelling doesn't sound great.
It doesn't sound great. But there's a reason for it, because manifestors are supposed to have, they're supposed to be open to these divine urges and take action on them. And if we have an open aura, there's too much potential for influence.
Right.
There's too much potential for distraction. And so, with this pushing closed aura, it's like only the things that we want to come through will come through. And everything else will be pushed away. And honestly, that was really validating for me too. Because all my life I was told that I was intimidating or stuck up or closed off or whatever, and I'm like, I just want to be liked just like everybody else wants to be liked. And
you weren't doing it on purpose.
I'm 5. You can't tell I'm sitting down. I'm 5 feet tall.
She is tiny. She's a tiny woman
with like blue eyes and like.
She's very fierce, though, I have to say.
How can you be like? But anyway.
I mean, I found you intimidating.
But I say it's like. It's kind of energetic, because when a manifestor walks in the room, that aura pushes all the other auras.
Right.
And so it's like, you're not sure why. Like in your mind, you're like, I don't know what it is about this girl, but like something it's almost like danger, you know? It's almost like something isn't nice here, you know? And it's because it's like this energetic intimidation of this aura that's like really dense and pushing.
Right. But you're not doing it on purpose. It's just...
No.
Right. Okay, so I'm sure that everyone who's listening to this is like, well, I want to be a manifester, right? Because we're conditioned by our society to believe that if we want something and we just go for it, and if we initiate, then we can make it happen. And, you know, I think our society really values these qualities of a manifester, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's funny though, because I think too, I guess because society is a bunch of generators, I mean, everybody else is conditioned to kind of be a generator, which is like the hustle culture.
Right.
So yeah, there's the go get it.
Yeah.
And then hustle.
Right.
And it's like, that simply does not work for everyone.
Right.
But honestly, I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, it'd be so nice if things would just like kind of come to me, and
right.
I mean, but it's also very empowering to, you know, like, I've taken some risks recently, like in business.
Yes, you have.
Where I'm like, you know, I wanna like talk to that person, or I wanna do a reading for that person, or whatever, and like I just ask. Where I never would do that before, but it is always received well. If I have the urge to ask, like if it's not pressure, but it's an actual like from the inside.
Right. And it feels aligned.
Yeah. If it feels aligned for me to have that thing, and I just simply ask for it, like, I don't think I've been told no yet.
That's amazing.
It just happens, you know? People are like, oh yes, like,
that's
stoked
amazing.
about it, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know? And then I get to kind of like call the shots too, and I'm like, oh, you know? It's,
right.
It's super empowering, you know, but also it does feel sometimes like a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, really, even stupid stuff like wanting to go out with friends, like, I have to initiate that. Like,
right.
No one's going to invite me. Not that no one's going to invite me, but, like, it's less likely that I'm going to be invited to go and do something. Like, I have to kind of initiate that. And it can be exhausting. It's kind of exhausting.
I mean, I'm a projector, and my strategy is to wait for the invitation, but if you are friends with me, you know that I invite you all the time. So, and it can be exhausting, especially if it's not your design, and that's not my strategy. But
right. Yes. But I mean, for little things too, like I should say, I think it's fine. Like if a projector is gonna go and invite a friend out, like you're not getting out of alignment. You know?
Right.
But I think naturally people who are not manifestors, like, are just not necessarily gonna make that initial invitation, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like very subtle, but once you start to notice it and see it through the lens of human design, you're like, oh,
right.
I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have so many more questions for you.
Okay.
So you mentioned conditioning. Can we talk about conditioning?
Yeah. So I think there are probably lots of definitions of conditioning. You know, it's just obviously the way that you were raised. It's that nature versus nurture, right? So it's almost like, here's your human design, here's your nature, and then everyone around you and society and experiences that you have kind of add these layers on. That's your nurture, but that's also your conditioning. And so sometimes, you know, maybe it's positive for you, and sometimes maybe not so much. But in human design, really, when we're talking about conditioning, we mean the way that the energy centers are affected. So in each of us, we have 9 energy centers. Like the chakras, there are 7. There are 2 more in human design. And each energy center corresponds to not only our physiology, but other things like our emotions or our survival instincts, or our pressure to think or our pressure to do, different aspects of us. And so when when one of those centers is defined, meaning it's kind of, if you look at a chart, it's colored in, that means that we have consistent access to that energy in that center. So for instance, if it's your root center, you have consistent access to energy to do. Okay. So like root center people can be pretty busy.
I do not have that, by the way.
I don't have that, but I do have a partner and a son who have a defined root center. So mine's undefined, it's white, not colored in, but both Mike and Matt have a defined root center. And so what I have found since learning about human design is that their energy in their root center conditions me. And what that means is that my root center absorbs all their energy to do, their pressure to do, and then it amplifies it and distorts it. Right. And that's where I find myself making decisions from that place. So I'm going all the time. Right. All the time. And when I learned about this, I was like, oh my gosh, so sometimes it's actually just energetic pressure from them that I'm feeling. Because they don't really feel like that. Like Mike will just be like laying on the couch and I'm like, what are you doing? There's laundry and there's this and there's that. Like we have to do all these things. But like when I'm out of his aura, when he's gone, I have such an easier time sitting on the couch.
And knowing when to stop and knowing your limits, right?
Right, yes. So it's things like that too. And so if you grew up with a mom, like say you're a projector and you grew up with a generator mom.
Which I did.
So you were just absorbing her sacral energy all the time. And, you know, especially if you didn't empty out or you weren't aware of it, you just didn't know when to quit. And you were also conditioned to believe that that is the way that you should live your life. Right. The hustle.
Right.
And so then when you're going out and living your life and you're trying to hustle and you're trying to go, all you're doing is meeting resistance. Because that's not actually who you are. Right. And that's not actual alignment, because that's just energetic pressure for you.
Yes.
And so being aware of that and shifting the awareness so that, you know, for instance, like I'll stop myself and be like, okay, deep breath. Do I really want and need to do the laundry right now? Or do I really need to play with my kid on the floor or take a nap or have a snack? Like, what is it that I really need right now? Is this just pressure or is this something that I actually want to do?
Right.
And again, it's like seems so simple, but it has been very profound.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's been profound for me. So Ben, my husband, is a generator, but he also has an undefined root center. I do too. Both of our boys, one is a manifestor, one is a generator, they have defined roots. So I pick them up at 2:30 on most days from school, and you know, I feel that pressure from them to do and go. And it's so funny what you said about like Mike being on the couch and just like chilling out, and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta do all this stuff. I feel that from my kids. They're just like, you know, they're lying on the couch eating their after school snacks, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I need to like clean up the house or like whatever. If they weren't there, I wouldn't feel that way.
Right.
So when we are by ourselves, especially for projectors and reflectors, because we are non-energy types, right? So the other day I was home by myself like all day long, and I had consistent energy to do work all day long, but it was work that I wanted to do. It was work for my business. I was writing, I was communicating with clients, I was doing all this stuff. I didn't feel tired. I just felt really inspired. So can you speak to that a little bit? Like, why is it that I was able to sustain that energy when like I'm a non-energy type?
Well, for one, you really are kind of embodying your design. So like you take time every single day to empty out, and you take time every single day to rest and to fuel your body properly. Yeah. And all the things that you need are taken care of for you. Not all the time, obviously. Right. But like I see you and like you're really good at taking care of your own needs. So it's kind of essentially like your cup is full.
Yeah.
And so when you do feel inspired, and when you are, because you are here to guide and you are here to live creatively and to also kind of like be that role model, there are other parts of your chart, apart from just your type, that show you kind of what you're here to do and embody. And so when you're embodying that and you are doing that and you are in flow and you are inspired, it is going to be this sort of flowing energy.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like.
Yeah. Until it's not.
Right.
And then you need to empty out again, and you need to rest again, and you need to get all your needs met. It's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You still need to, like, probably at the end of the day, you didn't just, like, pass right out. You probably still needed to go through your whole winding down routine, because it's really important it's really important for any type other than generators and manifesting generators to have that wind down time, right? You know, but a generator could do that thing that's lighting them up indefinitely all day long, every single day, and just crash at night and get a great night's sleep.
If they're doing that thing that they love.
Yeah, if it's really lighting them up.
Right.
So it is kind of like a similar type of energy, but yours, it isn't going to be as consistent, because the next day you maybe didn't have that, right? So it's not that you don't have any sort of energy there. It's that it's not consistent and reliable.
Right. And it's not energy to do like hard physical labor all day long, every day.
I'm sure there are projectors who do hard physical labor, and maybe that's like part of what they're here to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was in high school, and then again, I think it was the summer after sophomore year, I actually worked at a nursery shoveling dirt. And I did that for 6 hours a day, and I loved it. I felt great. So, I mean, plus I was a teenager, but.
Yeah, I have a friend who is a projector, and he's a restaurateur, and so he's working in a restaurant like all day long, every single day, and of course, like, probably needs more rest than he's getting, but he's really here to be a leader.
Oh, okay.
And lead his people by example.
Right.
And so, like, he is inspired by working the way that he wants his people to work. You know?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So it's kind of like if you're doing your thing and you're doing your purpose and you're full otherwise, you are going to have energy to do stuff. It's just, like I said, it might not be as reliable.
Yeah. So I'm sure there are people out there who have heard about human design, or maybe they're going to go look into it now. What if it doesn't resonate with them? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, well, like my story, how I just didn't resonate with being a manifestor, and I hear all the time, like, there are very common sort of types that will have, you know, like a lot of times manifesting generators will be like, no, I really feel like a manifestor, and I'm like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, there are similarities there, but ultimately the mechanics of your aura and your strategy are different, right? But really what it is conditioning.
Right.
So, I mean, if your whole life you were conditioned to be a generator, but you're a projector, and someone tells you need to rest, even my mom's a projector, and I'm like, Mom, like, you need more rest. Like, this is why, I truly believe that's why she has struggled with so many health issues.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are other things too, but, you know, she's like, I don't know how.
Yeah.
She doesn't know how. And so, like, if you've been conditioned to not rest and you learn that that's kind of what you need, what I say is, of course, if it doesn't resonate and it's not for you, then it's not for you.
Yeah.
You know? But what I say is just experiment a little bit and see what happens. You know, if you find out that you're a generator, for instance, and so you own a business. You're a generator, you own a business, and you feel like you've been pushing and pushing and pushing and initiating, maybe experiment with just doing the things that are lighting you up and see what happens. Like, see what comes in for you to respond to, and like, start paying attention. start paying attention to everything that's coming in. Like, if you get a message from someone random, like, pay attention to that. Like, are you going to respond to that? Is that something for you to, you know, pursue or not?
Right.
So I would just say, like, start experimenting with the things that you read about in your design, and then if it still doesn't resonate, fine.
Right.
You know, like,
yeah. Do you believe that human design is for everyone?
I like I said, I like see and speak human design. Like, to me, like, I don't know, like, I meet someone and I feel like, oh, they have a defined heart center, and like I can just feel it. So
you can guess without looking at their chart.
It's getting to that point.
Yeah.
I spoke on Friday to a group of moms, and like, I was pretty spot on with all the types.
Yeah.
You know? And even some of their energy centers too. You know, they're just like very common things. Like, for instance, the heart or the ego center. You know, someone will describe to me that they like have a lot of trouble staying motivated, and they have a lot of trouble seeing commitments through, and they feel really bad about it and whatever. And I'm like, I'm willing to bet you have an undefined heart center.
That makes sense.
You know, and maybe you're not committing to the correct things, like, you know, so it's, to me, it just is.
Yeah, it just is. Yeah.
It just is.
It just makes so much sense. I mean, I am not, like, I don't eat and breathe human design. Like, I don't embody it in the way that you do, in terms of my knowledge, but I have to say that it resonates so deeply with me.
Yeah.
And I've been able to, sometimes it's just very clear, you know, you can guess somebody's type.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. So why do you feel human design is so important for the planet? And can you speak to its importance for our kids, for our children?
I think that's why it's so important for the planet,
right?
Is our children, because, I mean, we're all walking around as these conditioned beings. Like, me as a manifestor, walking around thinking I need to wait for things to happen. Like, what if I never started stepping into the energy of going after what I want? Like, you know, my impact would be, like, I'm not making the impact I'm supposed to make.
Right.
What if you never learned that you need to rest and wait for the invitation? Like, so many amazing things have happened for you this year alone, you know?
Yeah, and I think for me, I mean, I've always known that I needed to rest, but I thought something was wrong with me.
Right. And it really took a toll on your self-worth.
A huge toll. Yeah.
And so if we're all walking around just living in our conditioning, I mean, we're literally living as someone else.
Yeah.
And that brings up that not self theme. So whether it's anger, frustration, bitterness, or disappointment, we're all walking around that way. And if we perpetuate that to our children, if our children, you know, we do the best that we can with what we have, and if we don't have the knowledge of their sort of blueprint, and we don't have the knowledge that they're different from us, and they're different from their sibling, and we raise them the way that we just have been raised, then we're perpetuating that cycle. And then, you know, how many years do they have to spend shedding all those layers? Like, I'm 31 years old, and I'm just now doing all this work to get to who I actually am.
Yeah.
Like, what if I was just raised from the beginning to be who I am, and to be okay with that? Like, to be okay with all the other parts of being a manifestor that are not ideal.
Right.
You know?
Right.
If I was raised in a way that was, like, very nourishing for that, for being a manifestor and for really embodying my design, where would I be now? And where would the planet be if all of us were? You know? So I just think it's so powerful. And that's really what I'm passionate about doing, is, like, teaching mothers, teaching parents, you know, first about their own, because you've got to shed your own you know what, before you really understand and embody it for your kids too.
Right.
But really, like, those silly examples I was making, like those tiny little tweaks in communication based on my son or my partner's design have really improved the dynamic in our house, like to a place that is more peaceful.
I mean, that's happened with us
Mm-hmm.
because now I think for me, even though my husband has always accepted me for who I am, he's always encouraged me to rest because he sees it so clearly. But that's something about the projector, right? We see the other.
Mm-hmm.
We're not so good at seeing ourselves.
Right.
And it's important for projectors to be surrounded by people who see them.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily for me, my husband has always really seen me.
Yeah.
But here I am with this amazingly supportive husband, and I'm still resisting that, or I was.
Right.
I was resisting that permission that he was giving me to just rest,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So now I feel like our dynamic in our house has changed because I'm like, okay guys, remember mommy's a projector. Projectors need a lot of rest. And I'm giving myself that permission to just
Mhm.
be who I am. And then we have Felix, who is this feisty manifester, and we understand him so much better. And we've actually talked a lot about human design with our boys, and they've really embraced it. They really love it, especially Felix, because I think that he feels very validated. He feels normalized
Right, because he's so different.
because he's so different, and he feels us really understanding him, I think.
Mhm.
And so we talk about his strategy as a manifestor child. You know, it's like if you want something, you just have to ask
Right.
politely for what you want. And honestly, like 9 times out of 10, if he asks politely, he gets what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
he loves to jump up on Ben's back, but he'll do it without any warning. So Ben has told him, Felix, you can do that. Just inform me.
Mm-hmm.
Just let me know. You have to give me a warning. And it's
Mhm.
amazing. It's so much more peaceful.
Yeah.
It's so much more peaceful.
Well, and I think too, it gives you more confidence as a parent.
Yes.
You know, to like, you know, because I think a lot of times we look outside because we kind of know things intuitively, but we second guess ourselves because it is different.
Yep.
But then you look at human design and you look at the design of yourself and your child and your partner and you're like, okay, no, I was right.
Yeah.
This is how it is. Like,
Mhm.
I knew it, you know? And it really is very affirming and very validating, like you said. And so it
Mhm.
gives you this confidence to really follow your intuition.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest theme when I'm working with clients is really just like your body knows.
I
Your
literally
body
just
knows.
posted this to my stories on Instagram.
Yeah.
In all aspects of life,
Mm-hmm.
your body knows.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to clear that extra noise
Yes.
and just listen,
Yes.
right? Because nobody knows
Mhm.
you better than you.
Right. Well, you can know yourself better than anyone else can know you, right? Like a lot
Right.
of people don't know themselves.
I guess you have the potential for
Yes, totally.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, like your body knows better than anybody,
that. Right. But your personality might not.
but
right?
your mind is
Your
like,
mind.
oh no, you know?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, you know everyone better than they know themselves.
It's funny. I've had clients say, like, are you psychic? Like, you just know me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I just see it.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's so clear to me.
I mean, even I feel that way sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, and as a manifestor, and I really do think, without getting too complicated or too in depth with it, you know, those parts of our charts that really are our body versus our personality, mine is a splenic projector.
Right.
And so, like, I do have that intuition and that
Mhm.
sort of, like, laser focus when it comes
Mhm.
to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when I'm tuned into that, that's how it is for me too, where
Yeah.
people are like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
you know, just strangers
Yes.
that I meet on the internet, you know,
Yes.
I can just like feel it,
Yeah.
you know, but we have the ability to do that for ourselves too. And I really do feel like human design is just one of those tools.
You just read my mind. I was just thinking, like, human design is just an amazing tool.
Yes.
That's at our disposal. It's
Exactly.
available to us. I think that, like you said, you know, if it doesn't resonate with you, experiment with it. Just give it a try and see what you think. So I'm sure that people want more information. So first of all, how can people find you? You're about to enter this new phase.
Yeah. I'm not going to totally disappear, but I'll be a little off the grid. But I do have a podcast, the Aligned Motherhood podcast. I touch on human design just because I speak in human design anyway.
Yeah.
So there's some information there. And then, of course, on Instagram, Krystal E. Woods. My website is krystalewoods.com. That is a really great resource to go to get your chart for free. And then if you go through my website to get your chart, you'll automatically get a free PDF guide to the types. And then my new free course is launching next week. And that will be sort of like an intro course to human design. So a lot of the things that we talked about, but in smaller digestible pieces that you can take at your own time. And then, I think that's a really good place to start. And of course, Google is great. I just know it gets like very overwhelming.
Human design, I mean, talk about like layers and layers, layer upon layer. I've been studying human design since January, I think is when you told me about it.
Yeah, I told you about it like right after I learned about it.
No, it was when you came to my open house, so February.
Okay.
And Krystal said to me, you're like, I feel like you're a projector. And I was like, I have no idea what that is, but okay. And I was like, why do you, and after I found out that I was a projector, I was like, why did you think I was a projector? And you said, I think you said because I need a lot of rest.
Yeah.
And maybe some other things, but, so of course I got 2 books about human design and I read about it all the time. And I think what's so interesting is that, you know, you and I talk about it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I follow different accounts on Instagram about human design. And then it's like the more you learn, the deeper you want to go. And then you just keep learning and your knowledge keeps expanding. And like yesterday, I went back and read the section about projectors that's in the textbook, what we call the textbook. And it was stuff that I've read before, but I learned something new. I took something new from it. So it's just like with anything, you know, it's like sometimes you got to read the same thing over and over again. There are so many resources about human design.
There are.
A lot.
There are. I think you got to know your style too. Because there are some people who are like, all right, I don't want to do like any of the work that you've just done. I just want to like pay you to tell me and to guide me through this process. We were just talking before we got on camera that I have this gate in my chart that's all about taking shortcuts. Like, if there is a faster, easier way to do something, that is the way that I will be doing it. So, you know, like I hired a private mentor and did the course, and I just wanted to have sort of like the step-by-step, because there is so much information, but honestly, there's a lot of information online that I'm like,
there's some info about human design that's not great. So one thing before we end that I want to just have you touch on is, I think there's the potential for people to read about human design, to read about their type, and read about their strategy, and to feel pretty bummed out by it. Like as a projector, I have to wait for the invitation. So I'm just supposed to like sit around and do nothing, and like I got really bummed out by it at the beginning. But it really depends on whose interpretation of human design you're reading, right?
I think it's a couple different things. I think one, yes, it does matter what you're reading, because even Ra Uruhu, which is the messenger of human design, he was a manifester and like pretty blunt, and said some things about other types that, you know, when you read them, you're like, are kind of offensive almost.
He said stuff about projectors for sure,
Yeah.
I think.
Especially generators, calling them slaves. It's like,
Oh.
So there is some stuff out there that I do think you kind of need to find someone that resonates with you before you choose to take information from them. Secondly, that feeling of, it's kind of like trigger, that is also an opportunity. Because that's an opportunity for you to see where your deepest conditioning is.
Right.
Like if it's triggering you that, you're here to respond. One, yes, maybe you might have a distorted definition of what to respond actually means. But also, that shows you where some of your deepest conditioning is. To believe that responding instead of initiating, or responding instead of, anything else, is an inherently bad thing.
Right.
And I find that too, where people will look at their charts and they're like, oh, I have undefined heart, like, it's bad. It's like, no.
None of it's bad.
None of it's bad. None of it's bad. There's duality with everything. So there's a high and low expression of every type, gate, channel, energy center. Like, there's a high and low expression. And so learning the information and using it to, like, working with it is the only way to, like, really embody your design.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think that for the people who really resonate with human design, which I hope it will be everybody, because I do think it's life-changing, it is just that. Like, if you can, and I'm working on it every day, but I feel that the more I accept who I am, the more I embody and really live my design, the more I can relax. The more I can relax into who I am, I can accept who I am, and I can just trust that if I keep living my design, and keep doing the things that I love, then all of the things that I want to manifest, not as a manifester, anyone can manifest things, right? That's different. But all the things I want to manifest, all the things I want to experience in this lifetime, I feel it will come. As long as it's like the more I relax into who I am. Because there is this feeling of being in the flow. This flow of sort of divine energy. And I'm not, divine, it can be whatever it means to you. So, yeah, I love human design.
Yeah, it's all unfolding, right?
Yes.
And it's going to unfold in a way that flows and aligns with you and feels juicy.
Yeah.
Or it's going to unfold in a way that makes you feel like you're just banging your head against the wall. So you can either relax into who you are, and you can relax into your body and trusting your body, or you can continue living in your mind, and you continue living from your conditioning and what you've been made to believe about yourself and other people and the world. And sucks for you. Like, I don't know. Like,
yes.
I mean, we all have a choice. So, and human design is a great tool. There are other tools, of course. I'm partial to this one.
Right.
So are you.
Yeah, I do happen to love it.
It's pretty comprehensive, but yeah, I don't know.
And I think too that, just with anything, maybe now's not the right time. It's like there's the right time for everything. I think that it was the right time for me to learn about human design from you. It was also the right time for us to come back together and to really, that was the right time for us, for our friendship to actually deepen and grow.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you see this with your clients. I see this with people who potentially want to work with me as well. I'm not saying yes to everyone, just like you're not, because when the right time is for someone to be ready to make a transformation.
Right.
Or not even transformation, but be ready to be themselves.
Right.
And be ready to come home and shed the layers, because it's uncomfortable and
Yeah, and the process is different for everybody.
Yes.
So with that being said too, it's like wherever you are is where you should be.
Yeah. So if like someone watching this video right now is like, oh my God, like they're lit up by it.
Mhm.
The first time I heard about human design, I'm crying in
I
my
remember
car.
you told me about it.
Like, oh my God. But had I listened to that a year ago, I don't know if I would have felt the same way.
Right.
So yeah, if it's not resonating with you, just click save and
Come
watch
back
it
to
in
it
6
later.
months. I don't know.
Come back to us.
Yeah, no, everything in divine timing.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, I have learned so much today. I mean, we talk about human design every day, but I learned something from you each time. So thank you.
You just have a gift for recognizing others.
The way of the projector.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your experience, and really thank you for this trail that you're blazing. You're in what you are doing. It's really inspiring, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. So
thank you.
Thank
I feel
you.
the same way about you. So
well, thanks. Lots of love right here.
yes.
Thank you everybody for tuning in and watching us. Again, Krystal is at Krystal E Woods.
Mm-hmm. KRYSTALE Woods
On Instagram, and she is krystalewoods.com.
Mm-hmm.
She's got some really great offerings on her website. Her website's also super beautiful. She has an eye for design, for
Thank
sure. Yeah, it's true.
That's nice.
She's also a fantastic mom. She really gets women. She really gets parenting. She really gets moms. So
Most of the time.
yeah.
I'm like, when it comes to my own child, sometimes I have some trouble, but I always know what everyone else should do.
Right. So that's good. That's good for you.
Yeah.
So thank you again for being here, and I'll see you next time.
Aloha.